This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
Are your ulcerative colitis symptoms proving difficult to manage? Tremfya guselkumab can help you manage the cycle of UC symptoms. At 1 year, many patients taking Tremfya achieved clinical remission, and some patients also achieved endoscopic remission. Individual results may vary. Tremfya is a prescription medicine used to treat adults with moderately to severely active ulcerative colitis. Serious allergic reactions and increased risk of infections may occur. Before treatment, your doctor should check you for infections and TB. Tell your doctor if you have an infection, flu-like symptoms, or if you need a vaccine. Ask your doctor if Tremfya can help you manage the cycle of UC symptoms. Call 1-800-526-7736 to learn more or visit tremfyaradio.com.
I was never really a runner. The way I see running is a gift, especially when you have stage 4 cancer. I'm Anne. I'm running the Boston Marathon, presented by Bank of America. I run for Dana-Farber Cancer Institute to give people like me a chance to thrive in life, even with cancer.
Join Bank of America in helping Anne's cause. Give if you can at BofA.com/supportAnne. What would you like the power to do? References to charitable organizations is not an endorsement by Bank of America Corporation. Copyright 2025.
What is up, everyone? Welcome to this edition of There Can Only Be One, the podcast that puts together the all-star best-of playlists of your favorite bands and artists, and a proud member of the Pantheon Podcast Network. Hello to all of our listeners in Dithmarschen in Germany. How are you all doing? And, around the world, too. It's not just the Germans we're catering to. We cater to everybody, and we love everyone who tunes in. We are in for a good one because we're talking about one of the greatest selling artists of all time, the one and only Eagles. And here to join me back on the show, Joseph Whalen. Dude, you survived your visits over to It's Not That Bad doing the Grading on a Curve special. So you came here back to safer ground. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Jason. I mean, let's just call this a little bit of a palate cleanser, okay? Like there's some tough subject matter over there on those podcasts, those movie podcasts. It was a great time. It was a great time watching Madam Web and chopping it up with you fine folks. But we're back. We're talking about one of my favorite bands for a period of time. Probably my favorite band for, like a year or two window. So this is very exciting for me. I'm super into this. This is going to be a great time talking Eagles with you, Jason.
I just want to point out that every now and then, whenever I do episodes of It's Not That Bad, sentences come out of my mouth that I can't believe I had to say. You yourself just said, I had a great time watching Madam Web, which may be the first person in history to ever say that sentence. Yet here we are. We have made English language history to have those words together in that sentence.
I fear there's like a mass exodus of people that started listening to this podcast. I said that, and then they're like, all right, we can't listen to anything this guy has.
We can't trust anything you say now. Okay, so yes, we are talking about the Eagles, and here's what we're going to do. We're about to go through 8 albums in the Eagles discography. As always, we're not going to do any live recordings or best ofs, but are we? Because included in the list is the album Hell Freezes Over, which is kind of like a half and half because, yes, that's primarily their MTV live performance, but there were 4 new songs that were recorded for that album. So we can kind of treat Hell Freezes Over like an EP. The interesting thing, and the reason why we never do best ofs, is because obviously you get all the best songs on one disc. And in the case of the Eagles' greatest hits, 1971 to 1975, clearly that's the case because that is the biggest selling album of all time in United States album sales history. The only album that seems to come close is Michael Jackson's Thriller, but this is the biggest grossing album of all time. So that tells you exactly what you're dealing with a band like the Eagles. So I'm going to ask you, first of all, what was the first Eagles album you bought?
Ooh, man, that's a very tough one because I can't remember if it was One of These Nights or On the Border. And I'm kind of cheating it a little bit because it was like a joint purchase with my folks. So it's not even a purchase that I had made myself. But I think it was One of These Nights. I'm pretty certain of that, just for a couple of songs that we'll be diving into. But yeah, no, these guys, man, oh man, yeah, that greatest hits album is just start to finish. Like that's a road trip, like 100%. Like you just put that on a road trip, and then you're good. Like that's it. You could just play that on repeat, and you're fine.
I mean, we had the situation when Lyle Robichaud was on the show, and we were talking about the Steve Miller Band. And of course, like the Steve Miller Band's greatest hits is like one of the biggest selling albums as well of all time. And you have to think like this and the Steve Miller Band and Legend by Bob Marley are like three of the greatest hits albums that have ever been released. Oh, Classic Queen. Can't forget Classic Queen as well. Like these are the albums where like you're not quite sure exactly how you want to dive into a band. This is a great way to dive into it, but we're going to get into the weeds. We're going to get into the original albums as they were released. We're going to start with their self-titled debut album released June 1st, 1972. The band at this point is Glenn Frey, Don Henley, Bernie Leadon, and Randy Meisner. The album hit number 22 on the Billboard 200 and number 13 in Canada, and is platinum in the States. There were 3 singles off of this one. Witchy Woman charted the highest, hitting number 9 in the States, and at the 1973 Grammys, they were nominated for Best New Artist, but lost to America. Now, if I were to tell you that the band that had the biggest selling album of all time in the United States lost for Best New Artist, would you be shocked?
I mean, America though, like they're good too. Like I love America. So I mean, that's a very interesting one to have heard. I actually didn't know that the Eagles lost the best new artist in 1973, but it makes sense that it would be to America.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of hard to sit there and say the Eagles weren't, but I mean you have to think of the actual impact of that first album and the fact that the Eagles self-titled album. I mean, it did okay. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. It's something to sneeze at, but it didn't have the zeitgeist impact that first America album did.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so off of this disc, what did you go with?
Yeah, so this really came down to a couple of songs which would have been my pick, which is my pick, English. Wow.
You see what happens when you talk nicely about Madam Web?
Yeah, this is my brain is melted. My pick is Peaceful Easy Feeling because I think it's a song that perfectly encapsulates the feeling of listening to the song. I think it's just kind of like, it's super soft, like super mellow. I just love it. It's a really great tune. And it just kind of sets you in that sort of, state of mind of like you're sitting around a campfire. Like that's what Eagles songs really come down to for me, where it's just like they're songs you sit around the campfire, easy listening, drinking a beer, having a good time with your boys. Like that's what the Eagles are to me. So Peaceful Easy Feeling was my pick. And if it wasn't going to be that, it'd be Take It Easy because either one of those, like, those are iconic Eagles songs. But honestly, Take It Easy kind of takes a back seat for me to Witchy Woman, which you mentioned, because raspy voice Don Henley from the first line, like he is on point in this. Randy Meisner's backing vocals, also huge. And that sort of segues naturally into Most of Us Are Sad, which I didn't listen to before doing this exercise. And I like that 4 songs into this album, you get 4 completely different vibes. Like, I love that. It's really, really emblematic of what the Eagles are. Classic Eagles harmonies in that song. And it's a Randy Meisner tune, which I think just he has a voice that's very unique. Kind of like in the early era of the Eagles, like he has a way of standing out even when he's not primary vocals. Like it's really interesting. He's got that unique voice. So anyways, I went with Peaceful Easy Feeling. And then, some great tunes on this. And I was surprised by Bernie Leadon, as you mentioned, his banjo playing, man. That guy he can shred a banjo.
Oh, absolutely. It's going to be interesting. We may have to keep score on this one because if you remember the last time you were on the show talking about Sloan, we were talking about how the different vocalists add different feels to, the different songs. And even when Lyle was on and we were talking about Kiss, it was very much are you a Gene guy or are you a Paul guy on vocals? And no one is an Ace guy, but that's okay. Hey. New York Groove is still a damn good song.
New York Groove, it has its moments.
Yeah.
He's back.
But yeah, so you've got one in the Glenn Frey category for Peaceful Easy Feeling. I had Take It Easy on my short list, but when a song is a mood, you have to go with it. At least I always find myself going with it. And I'm going to put one in the Don Henley category. I'm going with Witchy Woman for this one. I mean, let's be honest, this song is a very cinematic vibe, right? Like this is a dirty kind of, guitar kind of vibe. And I still remember, because I'm a movie buff as well as a music guy as well, I remember this actually ended up in one of my favorite rom-coms of all time, America's Sweethearts. This is the scene where Catherine Zeta-Jones gets out of the limo and walks into the into the hotel. That's a fantastic film, and we've covered it on It's Not That Bad. There's no way that deserved the rating that it got, but Witchy Woman it's such a good, dirty, bluesy kind of vibe.
Yeah, like it's a super, like, and this is where, as this will continue and we go deeper into the catalog and further down the road, like this is the kind of song that I feel like they kind of lost touch with themselves, right? Like this is the type of song I want to hear from Eagles. Like there's songs later on in the road that we're going to get to where it's just like, why aren't you making more songs like Witchy Woman? Like this is where your roots are. This is what you do. And it feels like they lost touch with that a little down the road. But for now, like, yeah, that song is amazing. Like it's fantastic.
Well, you know how the old saying goes. You have your entire life to write your first album, and then you have a very limited amount of time to get that second album out.
Mm-hmm.
It's time for basketball, and Uber Eats is dropping deals on game day favorites to keep you locked in on the action. Like when you're craving a buzzer beater, but also buffalo wings. Or when an upset makes you want to ugly cry into a pizza. And right now, Uber Eats has game day deals from McDonald's, Popeyes, Pizza Hut, Wendy's, and hundreds more local favorites. So you can keep your eyes on the ball and your hands on a hamburger. Order now, only on Uber Eats. Product availability varies by region. See app for details.
This episode is brought to you by Coffee Mate. After watching this season of the HBO's original series, The White Lotus, this is the tropical getaway I needed. One more pina colada, please.
Hey, you're not on mute.
Oh, I thought I was in paradise. Turns out it was my Coffee Mate. Coffee Mate Pina Colada and Thai-iced coffee flavored creamers. Inspired by the newest season of HBO's original series, The White Lotus. For the love of coffee. Try now.
Good night, itchy eyes. Good night, sudden sneeze. Good night to your symptoms of allergies. Xyzal is the allergy medicine you take before bed. It provides powerful relief while you rest your head. Not just all night, but all the next day. Xyzal keeps working, keeping allergies at bay. And without those annoying symptoms disturbing your rest, you can wake up the next morning feeling your absolute best. Remember, be wise all. Take Xyzal. At night.
That second album, of course, being Desperado. Released April 17th, 1973. The album hit number 41 in the US and number 5 in the Netherlands. It is double platinum in the US. And there were two singles off of this album. Outlaw Man charted the highest, hitting number 59 in the US. So off of this one, where'd you go?
Yeah, so this is kind of one of those tunes that I ended up going with. I went with Desperado. And it's like the self-titled songs are always kind of easy because you could tell there's a lot of work and there's a lot of like care that goes into crafting those songs because it's the self-titled, like it's the album, it's the album title. Sorry, not self-titled. What am I talking about? But anyways, Jason, my brain is gone. Madam Web, I blame that. But in any case, the piano from Desperado, even before any words, like the piano just breaks your heart. And I'm a huge, like any song that has like a really nice piano part, like I'm partial to that 9 times out of 10. So I went with Desperado because of that. The strings, which honestly, there are songs in the Eagles catalog as I was listening to them, I didn't even really realize that they had those strings parts. Like I didn't even really notice them. You don't really clock them, at least I didn't. And then the line, "Your prison is walking through this world all alone." Like, oh gosh, that's a great line. But and then some honorable mentions: "Tequila Sunrise," another great campfire song. Like it's just, take another shot of courage, wonder why the right words never come. You just get numb. Fantastic. "Certain Kind of Fool." It's a really good tune as well. Very like a song about vanity, about like being that sort of center of attention in that world, being a rock star and some of the things that come with that. Like I really enjoyed that. Man, it's a really interesting album for what's actually a concept album with the whole outlaw man type thing. Like they went down that road pretty far in terms of like the old Western kind of thing. Right. So I really like it. But yeah, I ended up going with Desperado. And yeah, that's great tune.
Yeah, it's kind of like an undeclared concept album.
Yeah.
And we had that situation when we did the Concrete Blonde episode and we got to their album Mojave, which definitely lent into a very concept album kind of vibe. I am in complete agreement with you on Desperado. It's my pick. There is no short list. It's Desperado. I still can't believe that song wasn't one of the singles that was released.
Yeah.
But I think the reason why I picked this song stems more from a personal point of view. The very first artist I saw live at a concert was Krista Berg.
Ooh.
On the Man on the Line tour. I still remember to this day at the Ottawa Civic Center. Doug and the Slugs were opening up for that one.
Oh
yeah. So this
Too
was
bad.
yeah. This is what we're talking about here, right? But here's the thing. There are two songs that I can think of ever written that in my mind, they should have been written and performed by Krista Berg. This is one of them.
Mm.
The other is Criminal Mind by Gowan, because that is so right in the Krista Berg wheelhouse. But Desperado is very much that solo piano storytelling kind of vibe that is very much, especially early Krista Berg. If you listen to songs like Broken Wings and Spaceman Came Traveling, like those are the kind of vibes that Krista Berg was able to pull out. And I have listened to much more Krista Berg than I care to imagine. And he may be the artist I've seen the most over the years. And this is from a guy who's also seen Anthrax way too many times as well. So you can like the everything and it's okay. Desperado, it's a movie unto itself and just lulls you in. The strings are great. Don Henley's vocals.
Yeah.
Like when I think about songs that Don Henley has sang, Desperado is up there. But it's up there with a lot of his solo stuff. The Last Worthless Evening off of one of his solo albums is such a good song.
That is actually, it's funny you bring up that song because I don't really know if I've sat and listened to that song, but I know it because of just the name of the song and like listening to the radio for years and years. It just comes on and you're like, oh yeah, Don Henley.
But I mean, off that same album too, there was a song called New York Minute, and it is such a vibe. And I think as I go through these, I think I'm going to lean more on the Henley vocals because he is very much a storyteller in his songs rather than a, for lack of a better term, bar rock kind of vibe from Glenn Frey.
Yeah. And I think that's something that, for me at least, this album, where the one thing that I noted listening to this album was, you have Doolin Dalton, 21, and you're like, okay, we're like a bit of a country twang, then Out of Control. And it's like, you can really see that Glenn Frey wanted to take this to like the rockier side of the spectrum, where it's like, you know what? I would have been fine if the Eagles just stayed in that other lane, because Don Henley's voice lends itself to that other part of what makes the Eagles so good, which is that country twang.
Oh, absolutely. They really were like the epitome of Americana rock at the time, and maybe one of the biggest and most successful America rock bands of all time. On the Border, released March 22nd, 1974. We have a member addition at this point. Listed in the liner notes as late arrival, Don Felder joins the band on this one, playing lead on Already Gone and slide guitar on Good Day in Hell. The album hit number 17 in the United States and number 3 in the Netherlands. It is 2 times platinum in the States. There were 3 singles off of this one. Best of My Love charted the highest, hitting number 1 in the US and Canada. So, the answer to the trivia question, what is the first ever number 1 hit single by the Eagles? It's Best of My Love. Maybe not the song people would think about, but it got up there. So off of On the Border, what'd you go with?
So it's very interesting that we just had this conversation about great Don Henley songs. Mine is the Best of My Love. That is, I think this is Don Henley at his best. Personally, that's my opinion on this. This song is just absolutely gorgeous. Like, you see it your way, I see it mine, but we both see it slipping away. Like, that's a fantastic line. I mean, it's just like one of those songs. It's just like, it kind of keeps you in a bit of a trance the entire time, if I'm honest. It's just got that sort of power behind it. So I went with the Best of My Love, which, as far as I'm keeping track in my mind, I think that is my first Don Henley song that I picked Desperado.
You picked Desperado too. So
I'm two Don Henley songs in. So yeah, and then on this album, I mean, some might think of, as you may have alluded to there, Already Gone, but like that's kind of like, it kind of takes a back seat to me. Like, it's just kind of like, again, it's just one of those like road trip songs that like it's a good tune, but I loved You Never Cry Like a Lover. It's just got some great soft verses that build to a really good ensemble performance. And Is It True? That's a really nice tune that I never heard before listening to this album start to finish. So yeah, there's a lot of interesting songs on this album. But yeah, I went with the Best of My Love, and I think it's easy to see why it was the first chart topper for Eagles.
this one, the album surprised me a little bit in that I found that the album kind of sat in one gear through the whole thing, right? You didn't have the storytelling dynamics that you had on Desperado as a whole album. On my shortlist were Already Gone and Midnight Flyer, which is the first time we've mentioned a song really being shortlisted with Randy Meisner on vocals. But rather than decide between Glenn Frey and Don Henley, I'm going to pick one that both of them sang lead on, and it's a cover song. I'm going with Old 55. The vocals in this, the sing-along chorus, like, this is a fantastic song, originally written and recorded by Tom Waits. So this is, we get a cover song in there. I can't believe we're going to get one, from the Eagles. But this song stood out, and maybe it's because it's a cover song that it kind of helps separate it from the rest.
Yeah, I was listening to that, and like I don't know, it didn't really hit for, like, because I think my thing was with that one, it was like at a certain point I feel like they as a collective made the decision that they were going to be like the ultimate driving song band, like that they just wanted to have songs that like were either that they wrote or didn't write in this case, but that were always talking about being on the road, about cars and trucks and everything. It's just kind of, I was just like, man, they're really like hitting this over the head, aren't they?
Which is not such a bad thing, because Road Trip Radio exists on Sirius XM, and you can just populate that with a bunch of the songs off that album. One of These Nights, released June 10th, 1975, hit number 1 on the Billboard 200 and number 2 in Canada and the Netherlands. It is quadruple platinum in the States, 2 times platinum in Australia, and platinum in Canada and the UK. There were 3 singles off of this one. One of These Nights charted the highest, hitting number 1 in the US. At the 1976 Grammys, Lion Eyes was nominated for Record of the Year, but lost to Love Will Keep Us Together by Captain and Tennille. The song won Best Pop Performance by a Duo or Group with Vocals, and the album was nominated for Album of the Year, lost to Still Crazy After All These Years by Paul Simon. I mean, I get it. Love Will Keep Us Together. It's a bop.
It's a good tune.
It's a bop, right? And probably the only song anyone would really be able to identify from Captain and Tennille.
Yes.
But I mean, if you're going to lose Album of the Year to Paul Simon, then I guess that's okay too. So I'm going to geek out here for a moment before I drop my pick here. Every now and then when I listen to an album, and in a lot of these cases, this is my first time listening to the whole album, which is why I love doing the show. You get to discover those deep cuts. And I had one of these nights on my short list, and I had Too Many Hands on my short list. And then, I had to pause because I had one of those holy it's that song moments. The last time this happened was when Lyle was on and we were talking about Creedence Clearwater Revival, and we rolled upon the song Hurdy Gurdy, which I was like instantly, holy crap, it's that song from Star Trek First Contact, which I thought was just a gibberish kind of stock music song that they put in because they didn't want to, holy crap, it's this song. Didn't realize it. So I'm listening and you hear this banjo playing. And I'm like, why the hell does this sound so familiar? And then the strings pick up and I'm like, holy crap. It's the intro music to the BBC production of the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy TV series. Of course, I'm talking about Journey of the Sorcerer. Instantly, I'm like, holy crap, it's Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Yes! I loved watching this show growing up, and I still love watching it today. The movie, it's okay, but it's not the original BBC series. And that song was actually kind of modernized for an orchestral version for the eventual movie version. But I lost my ish when I heard Journey of the Sorcerer because it's the freaking Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy song.
Man, I mean, Bernie's banjo, dude, like that's the one thing that I will say, like that was a major surprise to me throughout the entire catalog, or at least to the point of, I mean, this album, I think, which was Bernie's last, I believe. Yeah, man, those banjo songs, those banjo riffs, dude, he can shred.
I mean, speaking as someone who has gone to a bar in Ottawa that was called Zaphod Bibelbrox, I have drank a Pangaletta Gargle Blaster. The minute I heard this banjo, I'm like, I'm having flashbacks, and it's all good. And if you have not watched the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy BBC series, remember it was released in like 1980, so take all the bad BBC sci-fi production era out of the equation. It's based on the Douglas Adams book and radio play. It's one of the funniest BBC series I remember watching. If you like British wit, I ended up going with Take It to the Limit, but because of Journey of the Sorcerer, and I may actually switch my pick by the end of the day because that it's hard to get that out of my head. I mean, Take It to the Limit as a song, love it, absolutely, and it's more because of the staccato of that chorus. That take it to the limit. Ooh, like just those pauses make that part iconic. And now I have a lead vocal from Randy Meisner.
Yeah,
So
there you go.
Yeah, I'll just change that. But I may just mess this whole thing up and switch to Journey of the Sorcerer only for a personal standpoint. I'll let you know by the end of the show what my final decision is. But yeah, it's because I don't know if I would listen to Journey of the Sorcerer on a whim on its own.
No,
but if you watched Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, you're like, it's the song. It's the absolute song. And yeah, I thought it was just like some stock music kind of thing that was written for the series. And when you realize that it's an Eagles song, it's like, holy crap. And it's BBC we're talking about here.
Yeah.
Like that just shows you the impact of the Eagles music at that time, not just in the States, but of the world as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, like, those are the songs that honestly, like, when you have that personal connection, like, there are some songs in the, like, we'll get to later on down the road where they're like a little bit more of their well-known songs. Maybe one you could argue a little lesser known, but still like a popular enough song. That, yeah, when you have that sort of personal tie to it, and it's associated with something in pop culture too, like that also, like, there are songs, I mean, I can't think of any specific examples, but I mean, like, there are certain songs where you see it in a movie, you hear it on, like, oh, I can think of an example, Out of My Head by Fastball, which was like, I was watching Ted Lasso, and there's a part in that show where it's like they use Out of My Head from Fastball, and it's like, I always loved The Way. It's a great tune. But then when I saw Out of My Head in Ted Lasso, I was like, oh, yeah, that's an amazing song. Like, I should just listen to that.
I was going to say, Fastball has a song other than The Way.
Yeah, I know. Really? Like, what?
I mean, I have played Fire Escape live, but
I mean, and Fire Escape, I only barely know. Like, I can only like partly recognize that that's even a song by them. But yeah, no, like, it's one of those things that, like, you see it in pop culture, see it in a show you like, or anything like that, and it just kind of has a deeper impact.
Yeah.
But yeah, so piggybacking off of you, my pick is Take It to the Limit because man, oh man, it's just a complete package. Like you get everything that you like about the Eagles in this song. Like, and Randy Meisner, man, like I am a huge Randy Meisner guy. Like I think Randy Meisner, like listen, like you look at the Eagles, you look at Eagles and you have Glenn and you have Don, and like those are the guys that are like the heavyweights that are putting out all these songs, and they were the ones that they argued that they kept Eagles relevant when they went and did their solo careers, whether it was Don with, Boys of Summer or New York Minute, as you mentioned. There's a lot of songs from Henley that, were quite popular. All She Wants to Do Is Dance, like lots of songs in his solo catalog. But I think Randy has the voice that I most closely associate with Eagles. Like even when he's not the lead vocalist, like him in the background, like you could pick him out on so many songs and you can really be like, man, he makes a difference. Like it makes the songs more enjoyable, more complete. But in this song, you get everything. You get the harmonies that lead to the chorus, the strings, which again, didn't even really listen to or like consider that there was all that much strings going on. But then I listened to it for this and I was like, wow, like, yeah, there's quite a bit of strings going on here. And I think that Randy, the other part of it for me is that there's substance to his songs that I'm not sure that other members really match. Like I'm not going to name names, but there's substance behind these songs from Randy that I really, really enjoy. So anyways, Randy Meisner's fantastic. Lion Eyes is a great tune. Love it. Harmonies again. One of These Nights. Holy man, you come out swinging. Like it's one of those other ones where it's like, yeah, it's the title track. So like you feel like there's a little bit more care and a little bit more, and obviously it's the lead track, so you want to grab people right away, and they did. But yeah, I went with Take It to the Limit. It's it's I feel like a complete package.
Yeah, Take It to the Limit is a fantastic song. It's just not the theme song to the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Hotel California, released December 8th, 1976. We have a member change at this point. Bernie Ledden is out. Joe Walsh now in on guitar. This album hit number 1 in Australia, Canada, the Netherlands, New Zealand, Norway, Spain, and the United States. It is, strap in here, folks, 26 times platinum in the US, 9 times platinum in Australia, 6 times platinum in the UK, 4 times platinum in Spain, double platinum in Switzerland, and diamond in Canada and France. This album is the 6th best-selling album worldwide, the 4th best-selling in the States, and the 3rd best-selling in the Netherlands. There were 3 singles on this one. New Kid in Town and Hotel California both hit number 1 in the US and Canada. At the 1978 Grammys, it was nominated for Album of the Year and didn't win. But when you hear who it lost to, you're going to sit there and go, that is a ridiculously tough choice, because they lost to Rumors by Fleetwood Mac.
Oof. Yeah.
Like the powerhouse battle of the century, Hotel California versus Rumors by Fleetwood Mac. I don't even know how you would pick between those two.
I mean, you're splitting hairs like you're having a tough day. That's a tough day at the office.
Yeah. The album is also nominated for Best Pop Performance by a Duo or Group with Vocals, lost to How Deep Is Your Love by the Bee Gees. The song won for Record of the Year, and New Kid in Town won for Best Vocal Arrangement for 2 or more voices. So off of the 6th best-selling album in the world, and you only have to pick one song, what did you go with?
I feel like this one's going to be a little bit out of left field, and I don't know, man. Like, listen, there's so many great songs. Like, obviously, you start out with Hotel California. Again, it's the same thing as One of These Nights. You're coming out swinging. I mean, Hotel California, like, there's nothing that I need to say about Hotel California as a song. Like, man, like, that is one of the most amazing songs ever written. Don Felder, like, they called him Fingers Felder for a reason. I mean, the dueling guitars, him and Joe Walsh, as much as I love Bernie and his banjo shredding, you bring Joe Walsh in and it's like, okay, like we're really picking it up a gear here now. Like we're getting serious. And yeah, like New Kid in Town. I love New Kid in Town. It's one of my favorites. The Glenn Fry, Henley vocals, the descending guitar riff on the last chorus, like always makes my ears pick up a little bit. I mean, Victim of Love, like holy man. Like you're talking about, like there's so many great songs. And Try and Love Again, another Randy Meisner song. This Goodbye Old Friend, because this is the last that we will see of Randy Meisner, and that makes me sad. But Pretty Maids All in a Row.
Okay.
That song. Yeah, okay, so there's a sentimental reason that me and my buddy, my best friend from high school, like we listen to this song all the time. And like honestly, we kind of do it because like just the opening lyric, "Hi there, how are you? It's been a long time." And the way that Joe Walsh like sings that, it like we would have fun with it. Like it was kind of a funny opening to a song that we would, kind of laugh at the time. But when you really dive into this song, man, it's a very heavy, nostalgic, like, and it's just about growing up and getting older. It's like my but we learn so slow, and heroes, they come and they go and leave us behind as if we're supposed to know. Like no one tells you as you get older, like you're just supposed to figure all this stuff out. Like there's not anyone there to tell you how you should do things. It's you just have to do them and like figure it out on your own. And then the line, "Why do we give up our hearts to the past, and why must we grow up so fast?" Like there is a pain in these lyrics, and it's like a very nostalgic feeling. And I'm a nostalgic person. So associating this with my friend, associating this with just the facts of life, of like you grow older, and the people that were heroes, at a certain point, they are not going to be a part of your life as much as they were. And then at a certain point, they won't be a part of your life. And that's a very difficult thing to have to come to terms with. And I feel like this song, man, it unpacks that in a very real, very heavy way. And I think it's kind of surprising that it's a Joe Walsh, like Joe Walsh of all people, is like taking us down this road where it's just like, really? Like Joe's okay, all right, sure. But I'm here for it. It's I love it. It's one of my most played songs of their catalog, I think, which is like, again, I think it's a little bit maybe out of left field, that like it's not maybe the song that most people would pick off of this album, because there's just so many great tunes. But for me, just a very sentimental reason why.
Yeah, I'm gonna be the basic bitch here and go with Hotel California. I love you have this like, you have this like deep personal story with this song and then the connection. And I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna go with the title track. I'm gonna go with Hotel
There's
California.
no shame in that. It's like, that's it, right?
I'm gonna go with the Yelp review with a 2-minute guitar solo that is Hotel California. But the thing is, I think I lost Joseph on that one. I mean, yes, I did have Life in the Fast Lane and Victim of Love on my short list because, I mean, like, let's be honest, an Eagles single is going to be probably the best song on that album. But the thing with Hotel California is it's such a groove. And I personally find more of a connection with songs when I've had the chance to play them live. And I still remember I was playing in Hamilton one night and someone said, "Can you play Hotel California?" And I had never played it before. And our guitarist is like, "Oh yeah, no, I know how to play that." And the drummer's like, "Yep, okay, well, let's do this." And I'm like, "Oh crap, I have to learn this in about 15 minutes. Obviously I'm not going to play it as good as the Eagles, but I mean, quickly learned it and played it in the next set. And I'm like, holy crap, this is such a fun song to play. And you see the crowd reaction to. That's the thing. There are certain songs that I have played live and I'm like, I never would listen to this song willingly. Like I would never go out of my way to listen to some of these songs. But the minute you play them and you start to feel them a bit more, that's when you get those connections. And the thing is, as a cover band musician, I get a chance to dive into songs that aren't necessarily in my wheelhouse or songs that wouldn't necessarily I'd find more connection with. I mean, we all know Hotel California. It's like arguably the biggest song that the Eagles ever wrote. But when you start to play it and you start to connect with it, it's a different vibe. So it went from being, oh, cool song on the radio to, no crap, I would happily play this song anytime, anywhere, any day, because you see the crowd reaction and you feel that vibe off of them. And I think that's one of the key things too that also keeps cover bands and tribute bands running as well, is that it's not necessarily the song, it's the connection with the audience that really sells it. So basic bitch as I may be, but there are reasons for this, and I'm going with the title track, Hotel California. The Long Run, released September 24th, 1979. We have a member change, as Joseph has mentioned before. Randy Meisner now out. Timothy B. Schmidt is now on bass. The album hit number 1 in Australia, Canada, Japan, Sweden, and the States. It is 7 times platinum in the US, triple platinum in Australia, and platinum in New Zealand. There were 3 singles off of this one. Heartache Tonight hit number 1 in the US and Canada, and at the 1980 Grammys, that song won for Best Rock Performance by a Duo or Group with Vocals. So off of The Long Run, now that we have all these changes and this is the last album for a while, what'd you go with?
Yeah, so this one's a bit of a, we're coming off of Heartache Tonight, geez. Coming out of Hotel California. And, maybe losing a little bit of steam here. This is a little bit more of a slog to get through. But I mean, that's just because Hotel California was so great. So it's hard to live up to that. The Long Run does have some really good tunes on it. And I went with Heartache Tonight as I kind of spoiled there. That's my fault. Bit of a split. But it's, kind of that same, not the exact same, but a similar reason as to why that you had that connection to Hotel California. Heartache Tonight is one of the first songs I learned how to play on the drums. And so I have that sort of connection to that song. And it's just a good tune. It's a fun tune to listen to. It's a fun tune to play. It's a Glenn Frey song, which, it's certainly, it's a very Glenn Frey song. I'll just say that. We'll leave it there. But it's fun. It's a good tune. And then, you got In the City. It's a fun Joe Walsh song. Love Joe. The Long Run, good opener. Again, they love to open with the title tracks. There's other albums where they're a little bit further down, but they do love opening with those title tracks. Like Desperado, that was a bit further down. Anyways, That's a sidetrack. I'm getting sidetracked, Jason. I Can't Tell You Why is a really good tune as well. Timothy B. Schmidt, nice debut song from him in the band. But I went with Heartache Tonight because it's a fun tune.
I think there's something to be said too about how long it took them to get this album out. And you think about it, right?
Yeah.
That first album came out in 1972. Then they had releases in 73, 74, 75, and 76. And then you wait 3 years to get the Long Run. And obviously because the Hotel California, it was such a huge album. You're probably touring a lot. You're going through member changes. How do you follow up the biggest studio album of your career, which followed the biggest selling greatest hits album of all time? How do you follow that up? And then you can feel like there's probably some weight on them to do that. I also went with Heartache Tonight as well. I did have the Long Run on my short list, but I mean, the thing with Heartache Tonight, it doesn't matter whether you're playing it for the dance floor or whether you're playing it in a hockey arena. This is a sports song. Heartache Tonight, maybe not lyrically, unless you're on the losing team, but it is such a good sports anthemic song, actually co-written by Bob Seger as well. So you've got a little extra flavor in the gumbo there on that one. But I mean, really, how does a band follow that up? And I remember when I was doing the episode on AC/DC, and you would have a huge album like Back in Black, and then you have a couple of less than stellar releases. And I'm not saying they were bad albums. I'm just saying they were less than the biggest album that preceded it. And then you'd have The Razor's Edge, which is holy crap, Thunderstruck is the song that everyone's playing. And then you followed up with a couple of, less than releases. The weight of following up an album like that has to be so hard. I mean, take a look at Def Leppard, right? I'll argue that Adrenalize can be perceived as being as good as Hysteria. But I mean, how do you follow up Hysteria?
I mean, yeah, it's a very great point you're making. And I remember, watching the Eagles documentary, and they call this album The Long One because it just took, it felt like pulling teeth. The way that they described it was just it felt like we were really fighting ourselves to get this album out and put together. So the fact that they did it, and also some of their most, two, I would argue, of their more iconic songs on this album. So, I mean, like that's still a great bit of business to do.
Oh, absolutely. But then we had to wait 15 years for Hell Freezes Over, released November 8th, 1994. This is that album that is mostly their live MTV special, but there were 4 new tracks on here. Hit number 1 in the US and Canada. It is 9 times platinum in the States, 7 times platinum in Canada, 4 times platinum in New Zealand, and platinum in Australia, Japan, Norway, and the UK. There were 5 singles off of this one. Love Will Keep Us Alive charted the highest, hitting number 1 on the US Adult Contemporary charts. At the 1996 Grammys, Hotel California Live was nominated for Best Rock Performance by a Duo or Group with Vocals, but lost to Runaround by Blues Traveler, and that song's a bop, and I love
That's
it.
an amazing tune.
Love Will Keep Us Alive was nominated for Best Pop Performance by a Duo or Group with Vocals, lost to Let Her Cry by Hootie and the Blowfish, another artist that we have covered on this show. And the album was nominated for Best Pop Vocal Album, lost to Turbulent Indigo by Joni Mitchell. Before we drop our picks here, I'm going to ask you a question. Your thoughts on live songs being nominated for a Grammy?
I'm not so against live songs being nominated for a Grammy. I feel like it's kind of like cheating the other songs nominated in that category, though, that it's Hotel California. Like it's gonna be nuts. Like it's gonna be an amazing performance. It's Hotel California. Like we should just be like in a vacuum, like the best, recordings of that particular year of songs that were released that year. And I'm glad that, Blues Traveler ended up, on top in that one. I mean, you have John Popper going absolutely buck wild on a harmonica. Like you're going to win that, like you will. So yeah. I'm glad that they did. but yeah, no, I'm not so against live performances, live performances. If they're that good, sure. And if they're of that ilk, of that level, then absolutely. But it kind of feels like it was a little bit like of a, like you're shortchanging the other ones that are nominated when you're talking about, Hotel California as a single. Like, yeah, absolutely. It's Hotel California.
I mean, you can make an argument for it being nominated because you did have the reunion of the Eagles. So
very true.
I think the nomination in this case is more out of a celebration of the return of one of the biggest bands of the 70s rather than a commentary on if the song was made better or not. I have no problems with a live song being nominated if it's like a new song.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like you take a look at Metallica's S&M. No Leaf Clover, if that was nominated for a Grammy, then yes, absolutely, because it was written for that performance and for that album. It was a brand new release. But I mean, if in 1980 they released a live album and like the Hotel California was on that, I'd be against it.
Yeah.
But I think this is more an acknowledgement of their return as it is to, say that this was the best song of the entire year. But I understand why they did it. But off of Hell Freezes Over, and we had talked about this beforehand, we're only going to be dealing with the new songs that were written for this disc. What did you go with?
Well, this one was a bit interesting because we start out with Get Over It, which was the only one that I was really that familiar with. Like I'd heard that song enough and I was listening to it, and it's a very fun rocker. I will give it that. It is also the anthem for the least empathetic people you'll ever meet. I was like, the lyrics, I was just like, oh my God, like, what does he say? He's like, this is terrible. Like, I want to meet the child version of you and kick its ass. He says that in the song. Like, what the hell, Don? Like, you have so many great tunes. I don't think that this is the best of Don Henley. I mean, I think the best of my love, Don Henley, needs to like have a conversation with Get Over It, Don Henley, and figure this out because something's gone on here that's not supposed to be happening. I went with Love Will Keep Us Alive.
Okay.
Timothy B. Schmidt. It's a after Get Over It, a little bit of a palate cleanser. Okay, we're back. This is the Eagles. This is what we do. We got the soft ballads. The Girl from Yesterday is a great tune as well. Like I said earlier, really like the songs that veer more towards the earlier country twang that the Eagles have, more than the rockier stuff. So that might be another reason why I'm not a huge fan of Get Over It, but I will admit it is a fun rocker. So I mean, like the guitar, like everything, it's a package, like it's a full package, but the lyrics I was struck by. So anyways, I went with Love Will Keep Us Alive because it's a little bit more of that softer, just a great, good tune. Good tune overall.
It's funny you describe the song Get Over It like that, and it is actually my pick as well. But the funny thing is, like, the last note I have written here is beer will be chugged. So this kind of feels like Get Off My Lawn, Don Henley.
Yes.
I admit with that. But I mean, like, if that's the vibe you're going for, right? If you're going for a, blues bar, rock band, dance floor, beer chugging, there's like chicken wire on the fence to keep the thrown bottles away from the band. Like, if that's the vibe you're going for, then, mission accomplished.
Yeah.
But you yourself said, like, albums ago that they were looking for those, open top highway driving kind of songs. And this is very much an open top highway driving kind of song.
Yeah, it is. No, you're absolutely right. I mean, and it's like I said, it's the one off of this, the 4 new releases. It's the one of the 4 that I was most familiar with going into it. And I was fully expecting picking it because it's a great rocker. Like, there's no doubt about it.
Here at the Almond Joy Factory, where tropical vibes abound, we use soft, fresh-tasting coconut.
The crunchiest almonds and delicious chocolate candy.
Ah, but do you know what our most important ingredient is? Sometimes you feel like a nut.
Sometimes you don't.
Almond Joy's got nuts and something even way better than that. Yes, Almond Joy is made with almonds and joy.
Hey, it's Bill Simmons from the Bill Simmons Podcast here to tell you about Michelob Ultra Courtside. It's getting fans closer to the NBA with a chance to win prizes like courtside seats, a trip to All-Star Weekend, and much more. Check it out at MichelobUltra.com/courtside. Michelob Ultra Superior Access, Courtside 24-25 sweepstakes, no purchase necessary. Open to U.S. residents 21 and up. Begins on October 1st, 2024, ends July 1st, 2025. Multiple entry periods. Visit MichelobUltra.com/courtside for free entry deadlines, and official rules. Message and data rates may apply. Void where prohibited.
You're the perfect blend of elegance and style, and your ride should be no different. The 2024 Hyundai Sonata Hybrid meets all your needs, from business to brunch and everywhere in between. With head-turning details like a sleek front end, plus stylish interior, and an available 12.3-inch digital instrument cluster and seamless tech integration. Okay, Hyundai. Visit HyundaiUSA.com to learn more about the new 2024 Hyundai Sonata Hybrid.
We end our journey with The Long Road Out of Eden, released October 30th, 2007. We have a member subtraction. Don Felder is no longer in the band, and we're down to a 4-piece. The album hit number 1 in Australia, the Netherlands, Greece, New Zealand, Norway, Scotland, Taiwan, UK, and the US. It is 7 times platinum in the US, triple platinum in Australia and New Zealand, 2 times platinum in the UK, platinum in Austria, Denmark, Ireland, the Netherlands, Poland, and Sweden. There were 5 singles off of this double disc. No More Cloudy Days charted the highest, hitting number 3 on the US adult contemporary charts. And at the 2008 Grammys, How Long won for Best Country Performance by a Duo or Group with Vocals. And at the 2009 Grammys, the album was nominated for Best Pop Vocal Album, lost to Rock Fairy by Duffy. I Dreamed There Was No War won for Best Pop Instrumental Performance. Long Road Out of Eden was nominated for Best Rock Performance by a Duo or a Group with Vocal, but lost to Sex on Fire by Kings of Leon, a killer song. And Waiting in the Weeds was nominated for Best Pop Performance by a Duo or a Group with Vocals, lost to Viva La Vida by Coldplay. So when you think about this album, this double disc, you have over 2 years of Grammys, a country performance nomination, a win. You have a rock performance nomination and a pop performance nomination. And I think that in itself goes to show just how diverse the Eagles were, being able to cross multiple genres. Or is it just that they were already those genres and they just got defined a little bit more over the years?
That's a heavy question there, Jason.
No, we don't just keep it at surface level here.
Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. I think I think it's a little column A, a little column B, if I'm honest. Like, I mean, you're talking about such an iconic group that I feel like their influence on those genres was felt, and then they just kind of continued out of it. And, like whether or not they sort of melded them together, I mean, it's a very interesting thought process, because I think simultaneously, as I've said a couple times, like the earlier twang of the Eagles, I feel like is where I sort of lean towards. So, the different genres of the music that they've sort of interwoven together in these albums, I think like that's just as much Eagles as anything else. So I think that that's the interesting part of it, where you can have a preference of like what road they go down, but they're all like, it's all a part of the same, it's part and parcel, really. So yeah, it's a very interesting thought, though. I don't necessarily know that I've answered your question as much as I've just kind of gone on a little bit of my own diatribe. But at the same time, though, I think it is a very it's a sort of a existential Eagles question of like, it's kind of a chicken and the egg thing of like, who knows really, like if their impact on those specific genres is really what led to everything that we've seen, especially coming out of such a long hiatus as well.
Yeah. I mean, yes. Have genres kind of been subcategorized? I mean, if you ever want to like get into like the idea of like metal genre categorization, you have to watch the documentary Metal A Headbanger's Journey, because they actually narrow it down to like all these different kinds of metal, when before it would just be lumped in as metal. Here you have a band that was just good old American rock, and over time it's like, okay, well, you're also this and you're this and you're this, and because they have songs with different vibes and different singers on with every album, you can hit different genres as well.
And I think like the one thing, as I said, where it's like usually where we're having this conversation, and like I talked about how Glenn Frey, it felt like really, and I mean, watching the documentary, he is the one that really wanted to pull them into like the mainstream rock area and away from, and like Bernie Ledden was somebody that was like, well, I kind of just want to play country and banjo because sick at banjo, as we've talked about. So the one thing is that it's usually one or the other, black or white. But then you have one of these nights where it's like, that's a disco-ish type track. Like there's like, they blur these lines of genre where it's just like you can't even really tell what it's supposed to be or what it is, or sort of the thought process behind it, if it was going to be one or the other or somewhere in between. But the end result is always pretty immaculate, all things considered.
Oh yeah. So off of this double disc, you got 20 songs to pick from. What did you go with?
Yeah, this was a wow. I mean, honestly though, like all things considered, because I didn't enter this with the highest of like expectations, because it's just kind of like, okay, Long Road Out of Eden, like 2007. We're talking about like, this is 13 years after Hell Freezes Over. So what can really be on this that's like, really good, that has that like substance to it? How Long? Man, that's a fun rocker. It's got a great riff. And the exchanges between Frey and Henley, which, it's weird that I haven't really gotten into that, but those are the songs. Like A New Kid in Town is one of them, where it's like it kind of has that a little bit more so of like a Frey song than really a Henley song. But Henley's little, his parts, you can hear him, and they're quite good. But the songs where they exchange, really, really good. And How Long, I think, is, it's just a fantastic tune. I love it. Don't Want to Hear Anymore. Very soulful from Timothy B. Schmidt. I didn't know he had that in him. So that was great. Awesome strings. It's an honorable mention. And I just wanted to point out, like, and I don't know if you picked up on this, but it just kind of tugs at your heartstrings a little bit, the way this closes out with It's Your World Now. Like, it was a little bit chilling. Like the lyrics of it, like it was just like kind of like it felt like a goodbye from Glenn Frey without him really knowing that that's what it was. And yeah, like it was just a bit of a heartbreaker. It has nice horns in it, like nice. It's a good tune overall. But I went with How Long. It's got a great rocking riff, and yeah, the exchanges between Frey and Henley, as you'd expect, as ever, classic.
Yeah, actually, a cover song written originally by J.D. Souther. I originally had How Long on my list,
right?
And I'm deep diving in the disc, and I get to do disc 2. 10 minutes and 17 seconds worth of Long Road Out of Eden. And I'm like, this is so in my wheelhouse.
Mm-hmm.
Because mainly I'm a prog guy. I like
Right.
artists like Queensryche and Dream Theater and bands that are willing to make movies out of songs. And this is such a movie out of a song. Like, you take a look at the cover of the disc, right? It's these like desert dunes kind of thing. And the album art very much feels like the vibe of this song. Like, obviously, it's the title track, so they clearly had an idea of what song kind of influenced a lot of it. But yeah, the chord progressions, the soulful guitar solos, like this is pure Don Henley magic in this song. And yes, the longest song they wrote, 10 minutes, 17 seconds, and leave it to a Dream Theater guy to pick the longest song. So, so that happened. But yeah, no, it's set such the kind of mood where you want to just sit down, put the headphones on, close your eyes, and envision the movie that this would be. And that's the vibe I was getting off of this one.
All right. I just want to point out that it's interesting you weren't in on 48 Portraits when we did the Sloan episode. You didn't like the Andrew Scott 17-minute song, but you'll make an exception for Don Henley. I just want to note that. Just want to point that out.
The thing is, though, this fits more into like the vibe I was feeling. And that's the thing. When you go into an artist's discography, you generally have an idea of the songs that you're going to connect with. And as you go through, I look at the list of songs that I've got here. I'm like, yeah, Long Road Out of Eden thematically kind of fits in with some of the songs that I've picked. Some people will, I think the biggest discrepancy, or at least the biggest example of this, was when we did the Madonna episode. Madonna had like these great poppy songs. Then she had like her disco vibe going. And then she had these really deep, lyrically deep, slower songs. And I guess the question is, what version of Madonna do you love the most? Because those are the songs that you're probably going to pick out of a discography.
Yeah. And listen, I think it's very interesting. I wasn't expecting you to go that route, because honestly, the one thing that I was pointing out as I was listening to it, I really appreciated that they did this. Like, I do. Like, I kind of love it when a band just kind of like completely throws things on their head and like goes for a longer song like this. That's not going to be like a radio single. That isn't going to be sort of like, as you said, like you're a Dream Theater guy. Like, it's like, that's the kind of thing that I wasn't necessarily expecting from the Eagles at this juncture. Like, at this point in their career, I was not expecting them to go down the road. So the fact that they did, and the fact that they did it so sort of extensively, like a 10-minute song, like not even like we've seen them with like 7-minute songs. So they add 3 additional minutes to, a song like this. And I'm just like, okay, like, yeah, I appreciate the fact that at that point in their career, they were trying to experiment with some new, different things. And I mean, Don Henley, just, it's phenomenal. Like, he's a genius. Like, there's no 2 ways about it. Like, you're talking about one of the best, musicians. I was going to say drummers, but I mean, like, it goes further beyond that, obviously. But I mean, it's a really cool thing that they did and they attempted to do with this. And I think like it hit the mark. I mean, for sure.
So I just want to point out here, because I've been keeping score as far as songs by different singers. As I'm going through this here, you have one song where it's a Fry and Henley swap off. You have 2 Glenn Fry songs. You have 2 Don Henley songs. You got a Meisner, a Walsh, and a Timothy B. Schmidt. So you kind of jumped all over the place.
Yeah. Little charcuterie board.
Right? the Eagle charcuterie. I had a Fry and Henley handoff song, but a different one than you did. I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Don Henley songs, and 1 Meisner and 1 Glenn Fry. So clearly, I'm leaning more towards the Don Henley type of songwriting that that permeates throughout the Eagles' discography. But you are all over the place with this, and but the Eagles is the kind of band where you can get away with that.
Yeah, like it really is. And I mean, I feel like you could say that I'm all over the place for more than just Eagles catalog. I feel like that's a very apt way of describing me generally, Jason. So I think that's important to point out.
Says the man who said he had a good time watching Madam Web. Yes.
I'm glad you made that connect. I was going to make that. Yeah, I'm glad you got there.
All right. So we've gotten to this point of the show now, which is where we have to say and ask everybody, if there can only be one Eagles song, what's it going to be? So remind our listeners what your picks were from each of the 8 albums. And then of that list of 8, what one stands above all?
So, off of the self-titled Eagles album, I went with Peaceful Easy Feeling. Off of Desperado, I went with Desperado. On the Border, I went with The Best of My Love. One of These Nights, Take It to the Limit. Hotel California, I went with Pretty Maids All in a Row. The Long Run, Heartache Tonight. Hell Freezes Over, Love Will Keep Us Alive. And then The Long Road Out of Eden, I went with How Long. And as for my pick, if there could only be one, it's Take It to the Limit, man. It is Take It to the Limit. And it's because when the mood strikes, just out of nowhere, sometimes I'll go onto YouTube and I'll watch the live version of Take It to the Limit. Randy Meisner, dude, his voice gives you goosebumps. Like it doesn't matter how many times you watch it, like his live performance of that song, like the original recorded version, absolutely, it's gold. It's fantastic. But it's like the Eagles are just one of those groups where it's like when you listen to them live and you can hear those harmonies and you can it's just everything, man. And as I said, it's a complete package. Like it's my favorite Eagles song. It's the one that I listen to the most when I'm just sort of in my day to day, or, you know, it's kind of interesting with the Eagles because I haven't necessarily listened to them as much in the last 3 or 4 years as I did for basically an extended 1 or 2 year period where I was just listening to them all the time. And Randy Meisner, as I've kind of gotten into a little bit, he's my favorite member of Eagles. And I think that he was somebody that, you know, was a little bit, unfortunately, like, and just sort of after the Eagles, he kind of had a bit of a tough go of it. Like he struggled with mental health. He was not sort of struggled with alcohol abuse. His wife tragically passed away in a really, unfortunate accident. She was trying to retrieve a gun from a closet and then sort of fired it on herself. And it's just super tragic. And then he passed away only recently. So it's Randy Meisner is somebody that I have a very deep sort of connection to in terms of like everything you heard about him. Like Don Felder described him as like the nicest, kindest person that you ever met, really. So I love Don Henley. Geez, I love Randy Meisner. And this song, when you listen to the live version, it gives you a little bit even more of a deeper appreciation for just how good of a vocalist Randy Meisner was. And I think that, you lose Randy Meisner after Hotel California. I think Timothy B. Schmidt's fantastic, as I picked him for Hell Freezes Over. I think he's a fantastic replacement, but I think they lost a little bit of that secret sauce that made them Eagles when Randy Meisner left.
All right. For me, off of the Eagles self-titled album, I went with Witchy Woman. From Desperado, I went with Desperado. From On the Border, I went with Old 55. From One of These Nights, I went with Take It to the Limit. From Hotel California, I went with Hotel California. From The Long Run, I went with Heartache Tonight. From Hell Freezes Over, I went with Get Over It. And from The Long Road Out of Eden, I went with The Long Road Out of Eden. But if there can only be one Eagles song for me, and I'm not watching Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, I'm going to go with Desperado. A song that absolutely should have been released as a single, definitely got its acclaim afterwards, and such a wonderful piano song that paints a picture, tells a story, and plays a movie on a screen as it should, and should have been written by Krista Berg. I'm just saying, like it's those connections that connect people to different artists and different songs. This song, to me, in my mind, should have Krista Berg's voice on it, but it's Don Henley, and I can absolutely live with that. Joseph, thank you so much for this. And dear listeners, well, you guys know the drill. If there's an artist that you want us to cover on There Can Only Be One, or an album that you want us to cover on Spin Shuffle Skip, hit us up on social media at OnlyOneCast, or go to our website at notthatbadcast.com. And while you're there, make sure you check out our merch section. We've got merch for both There Can Only Be One, Spin Shuffle Skip, as well as It's Not That Bad. So if you want to help support the show, well, now you know how. Until next time, he's Joseph, I'm Jay. You guys are awesome. This is There Can Only Be One, a proud member of the Pantheon Podcast Network. Take care.